somebody does say or something that kind of like stings a little bit. And so you come home and you tell your husband and you say, man, that person did this. And they go, yeah, that sucks. I'm sorry, honey. And so now you're sitting across from a mirror of empathy and and that little gremlin is diffused just by bringing it out into the light. And so otherwise, if we don't talk about it, it might stew a little bit more and create something even bigger. Somebody says something hurtful, or like even something yesterday to one of our counselors, a family member said something very hurtful, and we spiral, or it's like, why would somebody treat me like that? And so we cry or we get angry, and then we drive erratic on the road, or, we're reacting to things. But fortunately, she was here and she came into my office and she's like, why would somebody do that? And she just took minutes to cry and express. And so when shame comes out in the light, when we're able to express it and share it, it diminishes its power over us. Does it change what happened? No, but it changes your power to respond differently. Again, so to the Me Too movement or people in your office, because they are owning their story, and by sharing it, they assume ownership. And then when somebody says, yeah, me too, now we've got some common humanity in the room and we're not alone anymore.
Welcome to Season 2 of The Cultured Therapist, a podcast for the curious and the bold to come together and discuss topics, interests, and experiences of the mental health care field. I'm your host, Arsene Winters, a licensed professional counselor in the state of Louisiana, and I work in the field in private practice. Each episode, I interview a helper from a specific region of the United States that is providing care for others through this work. And we take the time to get to know them and the topics they feel therapists, clients, and the public at large might benefit from hearing more about. With so many topics to choose from, there is bound to be something here for everyone. Today I introduce you to Melissa Bowen, a licensed professional counselor supervisor from the state of Louisiana and alumnus of the University of Louisiana at Lafayette with a Master's of Science in Clinical Mental Health Counseling. Melissa expresses herself as an advocate. After making a bold career shift in her 40s, she now, as a licensed counselor, runs the Authenticity Center, a counseling center where people build healing to live their authentic lives. Melissa is a TEDx speaker, a mentor for the 705 program, consults for the Hub Urban Ministries, and is on the board for the nonprofit, The Confidence Campaign. She lovingly calls herself a theater geek and lives in Lafayette with her husband, cats, and dogs. Melissa and I met through mutual friends and slowly through multiple meetings have gotten to know one another. It is quite obvious to me and anyone who listens to Melissa, she is a natural speaker and orator. Able to blend together concepts and word the difficult into the tangible, Melissa delivers easy to digest commentary and educational explanations for a number of topics. Today on the episode, we review her journey from working in restaurants to making a bold decision to switch careers, eventually leading her to become a counselor and business owner, and then a supervisor for up-and-coming provisionally licensed professional counselors. We next tackle the concept of shame in its different forms and talk about how one can be run by it and how one can diffuse it despite pitfalls and barriers. Generally informative and empowering, this episode is sure to help anyone listening to rethink their relationship to shame and their capacity for overcoming its hold. So grab yourself that gentle beverage as you find a comfortable seat, maybe in your favorite cushy chair, and we'll together meet Melissa Bowen. Let's jump in.
What got me interested in the work in counseling and work that I do? It was getting coaching and counseling myself for when I lost my 20-year restauranting career. In 2025, I was working for Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, the corporate office, and I had been in restauranting for 20 years since I was 18, bartending, restaurant management. I worked at a cruise ship in Seattle, came back home to New Orleans. And when on August 29th, when Katrina hit, the corporate office was in Metairie and was flooded, and so they moved our jobs to Florida. And I wasn't gonna move to Florida, so I started to get counseling and coaching and to help me figure out what do I do now, and it ended up it wasn't gonna be restauranting at all. It was an interesting experience that I even go through with my clients today of examining, like, what are you naturally good at? Your talents, your gifts, your interests, and the counseling profession kept coming up. So I took a class just as a dip a toe in the water, and I loved it, and then went back for the master's at UL. And so that's how it came to be. And it was a second career. And I went back to school when I was 39 years old. So I was the geek in the front row saying, I have questions. So stop talking in the back. But now I love it. And I've never had something that I ever thought, I can't wait to be a blank. But now that I'm doing this, it feels like such a natural fit for me and I love it.
Are you a supervisor as well, correct?
Yes. Yeah. I think it's been about 6 years now. Yeah.
As a supervisor, what's that been like for you?
That is interesting now. It was a learning curve, like when you start anything new. I take the gatekeeping, the responsibility of the role very seriously because we have an opportunity to, help develop new clinicians to be ethical, healthy, so that they can stay in this profession. Because quite frankly, we all burn out so easily and so quickly. Like we are talking about, I take the care of the counselor very seriously too, not just the care of their clients. So I enjoy the development part, watching people go through their growth and trajectory. And I do take it is very serious. I take it very seriously. That at the end of their PLPC licensure to go apply for that license, that it's my signature on their, that I would say, yeah, I would be a colleague with this person and I would trust the public with this person. But it's fun. You get to meet a lot of different counselors, learn different approaches because I don't know everything. So I love learning about the school system and their specialties and people who work with kids and couples that I don't. So I get to learn a lot. I watch them learn from each other because I do individual supervision and group. So it's a fun experience. I ends up making a lot of connections and colleagues when they're now out in the world. So a lot of the ones that I've worked with before, they stay in touch. We still consult, and it's good relationships to have out there. So I enjoy it. It's a good another avenue of the profession.
Have you had any challenges or concerns during supervision?
Hmm, there's always concerns, always questions to ask, or it's like, what am I seeing? Again, to kind of use your counselor skills, but a couple of relationships that had to delve deeper into. You have to teach people and work through your own transference, countertransference, dual relationships. Like you're working through all these things in real time and helping them develop their awareness and understanding of that. And then, yeah, if I see things that are concerning, I help model difficult conversations in the room. We have to be able to talk about honest things and hear hard things. So, as sticky and icky as that may be, that's part of the job. So I kind of like dig it. I dig it because then you can see how strong our vulnerability muscles and recovery muscles really can be, and boundary muscles when you start working through hard things, when someone's giving you feedback. And I mean, even when supervisees are giving me feedback, because that's part of my process too. So I've had some challenges and one experience that I did have to refer to a different supervisor so that they could get a better experience than what they were getting with me for various reasons. One for school, one because we were keep getting to an impasse. So there's always challenges that you work through and hopefully for the best.
Do you find that in your role as a business owner and then as a supervisor that the two ever cross in any way, or how does one inform the other?
Good question. The business ownership part of the counseling profession is huge because we're not taught to be business owners, and no matter what part of the profession you are in, whether you are in an agency like what I'm in now, private practice like what I was in for 10 years, or solo or supervisory, you are running your own business. You are the business. So it 100% overlaps because we just have to learn how to run a business. You don't just get to have a room somewhere and then clients come. It's like you've got to learn how to manage your finances, your time, your budget, and run a business. Yeah. Honestly, running the business is probably one of the hardest things that we all kind of we're not prepared for. We don't talk about in the degrees that we get, but we are immediately thrust into after we get the license.
What are the challenges that you have been facing maybe just this year? Some examples of things you've had to work through, and how did that go?
Well, so we just started developing the Authenticity Center a year ago. So this year, if you would have asked me last year, it would have been different as far as business you're talking about. This year has been very different because getting a community of counselors together, setting up the systems of a business that will allow it to function on its own so that I don't have to micromanage the business or be in too much of the minutia of it. That is a huge challenge that I was kind of thrust into because the development of the Authenticity Center really happened organically, just from the people who kind of came together and we said, let's, make this a little bit of a thing, a true community. And so now one of the challenges is being more the leadership role than a counselor role, clinical director, people management, ensuring the culture of this building is what we want it to be, one of safety and connection and clinical skills and making sure that the people in here are living those values and building the community so that we enjoy coming to work because I do believe the clinician has to be their healthiest person first so that we can be healthiest for our clients. So the challenges for me personally this year have been way more business oriented and people management than it has been clinical skills.
When you think about the future of Authenticity Center, what do you want to see for your business?
I want to see it serving a diverse community where people feel comfortable to come and dig into the hard, vulnerable things that we live with on a regular basis and as much healing to go out as possible and a good place for a clinician to thrive as the counselor they want to be. I don't want a bunch of mini me's. So, when I look at my age, I'm 57. So when I got to think of like, what is my exit plan eventually, maybe at 70. So do this for a while and I'll pick one of these fabulous people to just go, congrats, here you go. You want it? And then let it keep going, serving the community however it can and as long as it wants to live.
For sure, that's a very admirable way to create a legacy and instill a piece of yourself into the people around you, which I think of our opportunities in this job as such a unique job
Mhm.
and such a like privileged, profound thing. Like the profundity of our job is limitless. Do you connect with that in a specific way? Do you have a specific ethical mandate? Like, how do you view this role that's so effusive?
With reverence
Yes.
and intentionality. And I admit, like, when we get busy or stressed or when life happens, that I can forget that part of it. But I try to remember more often to make it a very conscious thing of the honor we get to sit with people, that they put their trust in us on the regular, that even we as counselors don't do out in the world. We don't let people see this vulnerable side. We barely go to our own counselors ourselves. No, I treat it with great reverence when anybody says yes to trusting me and coming into this room or this building or any office in here. I think we should. And I think when we remember that, then it makes the legacy piece, it does. I like that you said the word legacy because I don't have kids, and so often I wonder, like, so what kind of legacy am I leaving? My husband and I always say, "Leave it better than how you found it. Leave it better than how you found it." Whether it's you're staying at somebody's house, borrowing somebody's car, or whatever, just leave it better than you found it. And so if by doing this work, even one person's life, that will make ripples that we will never see. We have jobs that you don't really see the outcome ever. You don't really know if you're doing a great job. They either didn't like you, they don't come back. Their problem got better, they don't come back, or things were great and they don't come back. and you just don't get to see the ripples, but you just hope that you're putting good out in the world and it is making those ripples happen. And that is a huge legacy. So by that token, if I can develop healthy clinicians that are happy with their job and will continue serving the community that way, then yeah, the legacy is unending and I'll never see it. And that's great. But I like how the profoundness of sitting with someone in some of their darkest times is huge.
It floors me. I still have hard times sometimes when I sit by myself at night and I'm like, this is a job. And the job is to find the profundity of life that can be accessible enough for healthy change to be accessed if needed.
Mhm.
That's how I think of it. And to me, it feels sort of ephemeral,
Mm,
the job.
what do you mean?
Like it almost feels sometimes like the job that I do is so hard to really nail down because the type of things I'm doing are not necessarily something that is a job. I don't know how
Yeah,
else to
no,
say
it's
it.
not tangible. Is there
Yeah.
a metric unless you start using evaluating, measuring things.
Right, the
Um,
assessments.
yeah, it's not like you can have a quota or a checking account or some metric of the work that we do. Yeah,
Mhm,
it's an intangible. Yeah.
mhm. But it's not like we have a mandate to make it tangible
Mhm, mhm,
by our
mhm.
by our boards, by our ethics
Insurance
code,
companies. Mhm.
insurance like, you name it, we are asked to make
Validate
it
it.
tangible.
Validate it.
Right,
Yeah, validate
right.
yourself, validate your existence, validate the work that you do. It's like, "Okay, way to put me into a shame spiral just from existing, but okay."
Right. Did I meet any of these metrics? No, but
Yes.
you're still doing better? How is this
I
working?
think
Yeah,
I'm
like
good.
this.
Yeah, they said
Yeah,
they were good, so,
right.
yeah.
When you have to lead with your folks that you work with that are your fellow counselors that work in your business, for example, and you have to deal with like insurance and all of these different metrics, how do you manage that? How do you make that work for you?
Figure out what the need is, the responsibility of what are we accountable to? If it's a treatment plan, validating the work that we do, the insurance and the business part of it. There's going to be the non-emotional part of any business that we just have to be accountable to the responsibility of that. And so I do it. And fortunately, I have learned about myself through all of my personality tests that while I am a compulsive sanguine and off the charts in emotionality and empathy and whatever all the other things are, I also really like tasks. I can lose myself in some administrative things. It feels organizational and I I dig putting things together that way. So I really don't mind that part of it. But to help teach them, this is the responsible part. Anything we're struggling with, we can always make that metaphor to our clients too. Not everything is 100%. Nothing is. Not our relationships, not our jobs. It's the paradox that it's going to be both. And so I truly believe the longer I live, that our real capacity for joy and enjoying life will come with our capacity to be resilient and take care of ourselves in the harder, difficult things so that we can maintain access for the good things. And that includes running a business where I love sitting in my emotions and then I got to file for insurance. It's both and.
Yeah, two things true at once, huh?
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Normally, we have a topic that we pull up, and I was curious what it is that your topic is today that you'd like to discuss.
You asked that in the email. And as I think about all the topics that I could talk about, the topic that I love talking about is shame, because as a clinical word or even a spiritual word, or it comes up all the time for me. I know any of us that have like a lens that we look through, we see everything through that lens, and that's the one that I see most of my work. It's the thing that keeps us small, individuals. It is the lowest common human emotion, and that has the most power over us. And most pedestrians or civilians don't really know the word, and they should, because I think if we should, like when you can call it out, then you can. address it and recover from it just like you would anything else. So, shame is my fun topic for the day.
It's not a fun topic, right?
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
But I get jazzed about it because, man, when somebody gets it to the point where even the client I had right before this, she said, "Yeah, an email came in that's dealing with a situation that's recurring." That email came in, and I knew the second I saw this, the conversation that was happening, I knew that I was triggered. Step number 1 in shame resilience. Do you know that you're triggered? I was able to tell my husband about it, and I felt a little bit better. And that's even just step number 2. And when I say step, this is through the Brene Brown research of shame resilience, building your resilience to shame gremlins or the thoughts that I'm not enough. And so if you know that you're triggered and not just fused with a response to something or think that that's how you have to respond about anything, if you can know that you're triggered and separate yourself from it, then you can look at it a little bit differently and say, can I see this differently? What's happening in me? Is this really the response or reaction that is required here? Then you just have that much more power in things. Might still be triggered, but we're not going to change our humanity that way, I don't believe. Things are still going to upset us or hurt us, but I don't have to behave and spiral to the point where I believe that some part of me is unworthy. And look, that even to skip from I'm triggered to I'm feeling unworthy, there's a lot of steps of awareness in that we don't do as humans. We just don't. But we're behaving from them, from overworking, perfectionism, people pleasing, poor communication, that we could just have so much more agency and power if we realize we're reacting to something that we could respond differently if we knew that it was shame and called it out for one word. So, yeah, I do. I get jazzed about it.
I see why. There's a lot to it.
Yeah, and so Pia Mellody, everybody's got their prophet, of who wrote the book that they love, that taught them their approach, right? So mine is Brene Brown. I love her research. It spoke to me, changed my life, like truly. So I teach the 4 steps of shame resilience. I'll do workshops on it. I'll speak to anybody who wants to talk about it because I do believe it's very powerful. But before her was Pia Mellody. I believe she wrote Codependent No More. And there was probably, somebody before her that put shame on the map. So yeah, I do. I love talking about it.
I had asked you a while ago, what's the difference between shame and guilt?
So guilt is I did something bad. It's behavior driven, where shame is person centered. I am bad. So a lot of people, when we talk about like, I feel bad about doing something or saying no to someone or disappointing someone or even hurting someone's feelings by saying no, whatever, we typically say, I feel guilty. And I believe that's a misuse of the word because we feel like I'm doing something bad if I hurt them. But if we asked people and you challenge yourself, am I truly off my moral code by doing something or saying no or even disappointing someone? If you had asked me to do this podcast and I said, no, I just don't have the time, I would have feared disappointing you as a friend and colleague and a peer. Shame, when it goes unacknowledged like that, is because that means we're walking around with it. It's not just leaving my behavior, or if I really did something wrong to hurt you, I would apologize. I would say, hey, I'm really sorry to disappoint you. I do want things to be good with us, but I can't do this thing or whatever. And the guilt part of it, we would make restitution and rebuild. But shame is pervasive. Then it goes with me from one relationship to the next, in one room and one situation to the next. So that is why I believe it makes it harder for us to set boundaries, value ourselves appropriately, recover from things because it's more person driven than just behavior driven. If we really thought it was behavior driven, we would do different behaviors and feel better about the situation, but we don't. And so it's something at our core. And so it touches our core needs for affirmation, security, those kind of things. So that's why I think guilt and shame are important to know the difference.
Especially with shame, it sounds like that core that you're talking about, it seems to be something, I don't know, is it sometimes ambiguous how it's being experienced, the shame?
Yeah. I just think some of it is also so deep. from our life experiences, our traumas, that we almost kind of develop as if it's a normal feeling to feel less than, to feel not enough, to feel unworthy, so that we don't even can't. Some of us don't have the ability to acknowledge that that's a feeling that is causing these other negative responses, to even challenge it, to say, do I do I really need to feel this way? What's driving it? And so then we get into other counseling interventions and approaches to kind of get at the root of a shame response that might be locked in the body, whether you do something somatically or with EMDR or ART or DBR, or any other of the approaches that help unlock some of our disordered thinking. Yeah, it's hard to call it out. And so that I do CBT primarily. And so people come and sitting with me, they get to tell their story and we get to piece it apart. And then they get to see it a little bit differently. When you own your story, just by sharing it, you assume ownership. But we don't often share our stories because it's scary or they're sad or embarrassing or all the things. But as someone can sit with me in a safe place, get that validation back and start to own their story and integrate their experience and start to move forward, not with the cloak of shame over it. Now it's an integrated life story. It's something that happened to me, not something that I did wrong or makes me unworthy. Shame grows in the dark and it will diffuse in light. That's why the steps of resilience, to talk about the 4 steps that came out of Brene Brown's research, is knowing when you're triggered, identify it as shame, express it, give words to it, and share it with someone. So, yeah, I think it can be very freeing when you can acknowledge that it has power.
When you work with someone, what does this show up like in the counseling room?
It's really, I guess, to say a counseling approach, it would be more like narrative storytelling, but I'm very conversational. When people start to work with me, I tell them that very specifically, that I could say all the intervention. Probably other clinicians might have a snootier description of that, to use a word. I don't know. um, but I am very conversational, so I hope that makes people comfortable pretty quickly. And I tell them, I'm here to hear your story, what got you to this room, and the distress that caused you to get here. And I'm saying these words to you, but obviously it's way more conversational with my clients. And so they get to unpack their story, whether it's something that is recent and current, or even something recent and current that leads them to other things that have happened in their past. So then they start to share their story, unpack it, and see where some of the distress or survival mechanisms or unhealthy coping or dysfunctional behaviors started from, and unpack behaviors that came from distorted or disordered thinking. And again, whether that's from a clinical disorder or an experience, then now we're in a safe place to kind of examine all that and build back up from it, integrating that experience, not ignoring it or avoiding it, but understanding it and integrating that learning about the self and how shame may be playing a factor in your current responses. Again, current responses being either avoidance or people pleasing, perfectionism, all of those things. So that's what it looks like. It's like storytelling and then breaking down cognitive blocks and understanding shame at its core, whether that's spiritually, psychologically, mentally, and emotionally. All things are open.
Which one of those quadrants do you find the most challenging to work with?
Of those 4, like spiritual, psychological, mental, emotional, those, I think psychological. And I've never really thought about this, so that's a really fun question. The reason why I say psychological is because I think when someone has a clinical diagnosis of some kind or a disorder that they're working with that they may not even really know, we do still have stigmas around the diagnosis, stigmas around labels, even though it helps us understand things, whether it's ADHD or depression, anxiety as a disorder, OCD, autism, like pick anything. I think because we're still trying to integrate all these other parts of their lives that at least some of my clients feel like they get to choose these other parts, like their spiritual part or their mental and emotional energies, to use that word. Whereas some of the clinical diagnoses things, they may have come from, they could be naturally born, or they come from things that have come from our genetics or our experiences. So again, not chosen. It's hard, I think, to break the stigma around that because shame. We start to feel bad. And so we feel, I say feel bad, like as if it's something shameful to have any of these disorders. And so again, shame comes into play in the conversation because if we can own that I am enough as I am, no matter what I have going on, I come from a place of enough, then I can move forward with my recovery, my healing, my understanding, my more functional behaviors. But if I can't, then we have to break through the shame, gremlins, and stigma to even just get to a starting ground.
The term shame gremlins, is that your term? Is that a term that exists elsewhere?
I'm
Like
sure it
that.
exists somewhere. I'm sure I heard it somewhere.
Yeah.
Probably Brene Brown. If I were being mini me, it would be a mini Brene. But so that's just like the little nagging. It's just nagging. You know, I mean, if we were talking about someone's trauma, not to say it's obvious, but that is a completely understandable. Of course, we deal with shame. Someone made me feel unworthy, but uh, I know it's not just me, and that's Brene Brown's first book. I thought it was just me, so I know it's not just me, Ryan. But somebody could send you a text in 5 minutes and say something snarky, and you go, damn, that stung. And now you're spiraling somewhere later on in the day, and you don't even know that it's still affecting you because somebody set your energy off. Step number one, do I know that I'm triggered? So when we wake up and it's a great day during the day and then we get to work or we get a text from someone or see something on Facebook or something bad happens and now the rest of the day sucks because something has triggered something in us. And so I call them gremlins because they sneak in. They're not obvious. It's like if it were obvious that someone was being an asshole to us, then it's like, "Oh, I see you, asshole." That's easy. But it's what we call a near enemy. It feels like it should be connection, but something feels off. I call that a gremlin because it's getting in there stealthy. And if we don't know to acknowledge that or figure out what is that, then I'm going home and I'm being quiet to my spouse or I'm kicking the dog or firing off something on Facebook because I'm pissed about something, but I think it's this, but it's not really It's something that happened 3 days ago. So I once you know that you can have your self-awareness, then it just affects how you react and respond to everything. But I like the word gremlins because it makes it less woo-woo, less scary, and yeah, just gets in there.
Now there's a part 1 or step 1. So step 2, what's step 2 once you've alerted yourself to the gremlin? What do you do after that?
2 is a reality check or check it against what's true. So examine it. Examine, know that I'm triggered, and then do a critical awareness check. So what is going on, kind of going to understand it and evaluate it so that you can label it, understand it, so that you can express it some way. And when I say getting to expression, that could be for myself, my journal, my meditation, my prayer time, or a friend or my counselor. But so I'm triggered and now I go for critical awareness. Okay, what happened to me here? And and go for examining it against what things that I know to be true versus what might be emotional or survival or history responses.
Oh, that's so hard to do though, right? Because
Mhm.
yeah, it's like a delusion. Like someone could tell me over and over again that that's not how it is, but I'm not going to believe that because the delusion will always say, "Well, here's a little thing that helps me kind of defeat that reasoning I just came up with or that person just came up with for me." And
Mhm.
like so I can't get out of this cycle of, as some of my friends like to call it, Delulu land. And
There's an
and I
Instagram handle that
Delulu
there.
land.
Mhm. Mhm.
Right, and, you get stuck in it because it is, as much as you want to not believe it, it you make it's like you make excuses before the irrational thought,
Oh,
and then you're like, "Is it rational? Is it
right.
it
It's
feels."
complete. We can totally justify it, and that's what the brain will do in for a couple of reasons. The because historically your brain has done that, and so it has woven out a beautiful watery path that way. And that just like rocks and pebbles in that analogy of rocks and pebbles in a stream, it's like, well, it's what worked that way, and so that's the way it always will go. And in the case of absence of information, the brain is going to say, everything else is risky and dangerous, shut it down, just keep yourself small. That is physiological also. Like when you walk into a room and everybody stops talking, what do you think? People are talking about me. Everybody thinks it. And yet we have zero evidence of that fact because the brain says, you don't have information, something is dangerous here, just keep it small, shut it down. So keep yourself safe. So everything else is risky. So we have to go for other information. So what I teach my clients, and I live on a minute by minute basis, is I go for the other information. And so if you are habitually going to, we'll see, that confirms how much I suck or how much I'm not enough. So what we train them is for the neuroplasticity of another way of being, another possibility. So you can open the horizon just a little bit. Is it also possible that this could be true? Would you hold the same truth that you're holding yourself accountable to for someone else? Usually the answer is no. We're way more loving to other people. They are all more valuable than we value ourselves. And so then it's not a universal truth that you're holding their value as this, but I would not hold the same towards my value. So that's the critical awareness piece. So then it's something that you're valuing yourself just because it's you. Well, then you're the special one. You're the one who sucks, even though you have all the same humanity as the rest of us. But you are, yes, you are the one that does not deserve any grace, permission, and imperfection. And nobody would say that. And so now we're poking holes in the theory of how you're evaluating yourself. And so that's the critical awareness piece.
And then the expression piece is once you've done the critical awareness piece, or once you've done the critical awareness piece, the expression piece comes next.
Yeah, it's the other thing that will help diffuse it. Think about the Me Too movement.
Yeah.
People and our office in general. The second someone comes in, and let me even simplify it even more. Somebody does say or something that kind of like stings a little bit. And so you come home and you tell your husband and you say, man, that person did this. And they go, yeah, that sucks. I'm sorry, honey. And so now you're sitting across from a mirror of empathy and that little gremlin is diffused just by bringing it out into the light. And so otherwise, if we don't talk about it, it might stew a little bit more and create something even bigger. Somebody says something hurtful, or like even something yesterday to one of our counselors, a family member said something very hurtful, and we spiral, or it's like, why would somebody treat me like that? And so we cry or we get angry, and then we drive erratic on the road, or, we're reacting to things. But fortunately, she was here and she came into my office and she's like, why would somebody do that? And she just took minutes to cry and express. And so when shame comes out in the light, when we're able to express it and share it, it diminishes its power over us. Does it change what happened? No, but it changes your power to respond differently. Again, so to the Me Too movement or people in your office, because they are owning their story and by sharing it, they assume ownership. And then when somebody says, yeah, me too, now we've got some common humanity in the room and we're not alone anymore. And there's empathy that can be had. And we know by empathy, then healing happens in relationship. If wounding happens in relationship, then healing happens in relationship experience too. It doesn't have to be with the same one that hurt us. So that's why expressing it, it's the emotion regulation, expressing, whether we journal, pray, meditate, tell your counselor, ask a question, confront a friend or a person. The active expression completes the emotional regulation cycle. Doesn't change the thing, but it just changes you in it.
If you had to say one thing that you think you want folks in the audience to know about shame, what would it be?
Yeah, there's just something about that ownership. So if I would have people know, it sounds weird to say please almost like know that it's there so that you can kind of, if you look for it, this sounds so like, I wish I was saying it in a more affirmative way, but because if you know that it's there, then you can just call it out so much more quickly and not and live more with more power over it. And that's the point. Again, I hate to say Brene Brown again, but it's good. She likes to say, you're driving and you got your navigation screen on, but shame is riding shotgun. And if you don't know it, it's the one that's actually driving. And so I think when we know what's happening, when we have more awareness about anything, including how shame comes up in our lives, then we just have way more power over it. I respond differently to Facebook posts when I see them. I respond differently to snarky texts or when I make a mistake in a workshop or if I don't get a speaking gig that I was looking forward to, or if people have coffee and I wasn't invited, or whatever, pick something. You can just respond differently, and there's just more power there. So I would say, don't be afraid to point it out. It doesn't make it bigger. It makes you have more power over it.
Well, on that note, we're going to end today's work, but I just wanted to thank you for spending this time with me today. When I talk with you, I often feel like I'm experiencing thought as a river, and it's very relaxing to me to speak with you. Something in your presence, it feels like a river. It's always changing and it's always allowed. And I just really enjoy that. So thank you for spending time with me today.
Ryan, it's my honor, and my goodness, what a beautiful way to send me off with that thought. So thank you for that. Words of affirmation
Absolutely.
are my love language, so I'm gonna go and have a great day.
Yeah. How do people find you?
I'm all The Authenticity Center now. TheAuthenticityCenter.com on Facebook, Instagram, the web, LinkedIn. It's my name, Melissa Bowen. But anything The Authenticity Center, you can find me. We'll help however we can, whether it's people in our building or if I can find you getting help somewhere else that's more perfect and authentic to you. I'm happy to do that.
Well, again, thank you so much for this honor today. It was so wonderful.
Thanks, Ryan. I look forward to seeing you around Paths to Restoration too. I had a client today that's going to come this weekend, I think. So,
Oh, wonderful. We're always excited to have new folks.
yeah, so proud of y'all and happy for y'all too.
Thank you so much.
All right, friend. See you soon.
The Culture Therapist is created, voiced, and edited by R.C. Winters, a licensed professional counselor in the state of Louisiana. It is meant as a tool both in an educational as well as advertising capacity for therapists and those in the mental health field to let future clients, current clients, others in the field, and the general public onto their experiences and interests. If you would like to have a conversation with me such as this, where you clue in others as to what you're all about, you can reach me via email at theculturedtherapistpodcast@gmail.com. And as always, if you have questions or comments, that's a great way to reach me as well. If you thought today's topic, the interviewee, or our format is worth recognition, please follow our podcast, leave a like or a review, and/or please share it with any family, friend, colleague, or otherwise that you feel might get something out of this podcast. Your help in those ways is most appreciated. Until next time, may you continue to grow, may you continue to thrive, and may you continue to aspire. From The Culture Therapist, I am R.C. Winters. Catch you next time.